All right, this is the final episode of the Netflix Unchained series. This is the final episode of our commentary on it. I will do a thing for the Tour de France, so wherever you're doing this, subscribe, stay tuned. But you've been a trooper. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been a trooper.
Thank you. I hope I've added something to this.
Absolutely. Episode 8 was great, right? You liked it.
Yeah, episode 8 was good.
Okay. They ended it well.
I would watch a few stages next month.
Okay, all right. So they've won you over. This is editing Phil cutting in because I'm furious. I just realized that they removed the part. They left out the part from the Tour de France. I forgot which stage it happened. It was stage 18 where Pogačar was attacking on a descent. He was very aggressively riding a descent, and he crashed himself. And Vingegaard waited for him. And this was arguably the most dramatic moment in recent history of the Tour de France, and Netflix decided to remove it or not mention it whatsoever, which I find infuriating. I think it's the best thing. I think the only reason I can think is they left it out is that it sort of neuters the final episode. If you're trying to have any suspense of the, who's going to win the GC remaining, you have to leave out that, like, it's enough of a done deal that those guys waited for each other and then shook hands. Waiting never actually is a thing. Waiting, I think, like, someone waited for Lance. I forget, they were sort of bullied into it, and then they paid for it because he won the stage, and this was approximately 1,000 years ago. And since then, there's a lot of, like, will he or won't he or should he wait discussion. Waiting only happens when there's nothing to be gained from the guy who's actually doing the waiting. Vingegaard waited for Pogačar. There's a part they do show Pogačar. There's a point where he had road rash on his butt, and I was like, because they didn't mention the crash and that whole incident, I was like, well, that can't be that part. He must have just had a silly crash, and they decided to leave it out. But no, that was the crash. Waiting never happens. That's sort of a myth propagated by the internet and the one very famous incident where they waited for Lance. But the only reason he waited because the tour was over and he doesn't want to be solo for that long, and he's being a gentleman. But he would not have waited if he thought that Pogačar was going to win. You don't wait out of – it's not really sportsmanlike, if that makes sense. It's more gentlemanly. Sportsmanlike would be, I want it to be a fair fight and I'll let him attack me again. Jonas isn't doing that, especially because there's a skill element to Pogačar crashed himself. If you decide to race on the downhill and try to drop me on a downhill, like, you can bet I'm not going to wait for you. But he waited, and this was also like, Pogačar, you're not allowed to attack me ever again. Is sort of the thing. Like, this tour is over by me waiting at this point, and you get to accept it and be nice. So that was what the handshake was. So they had to leave that out because otherwise, who's going to watch episode 7? They'd have to build up a lot more drama for the sprint stage if they did that. But I think that was a real disservice to the sport that they would remove that. And really, my biggest complaint overall, I like the series, and I think they did a great job showing the tour to whatever they're doing. But that moment, I think, was a big miss. A big miss. So we're back to the final GC battle. They throw out some good parenting point in the last episode. There's a drone shot. There's like the village that's built into the hill. It's one of those, like, we live in Los Angeles, which is built into the hills, but God, does Europe make us look like shit, right?
Those are like castles built.
It's Pogačar and his team are just hitting him for the last chance to take yellow, and they do succeed in isolating Jonas, but not the same way that Jonas and Roglic isolated Pogačar. They isolate him on a 7% climb, like, he just ride tempo. He's not going to lose 2.5 minutes. So it looks like he's vulnerable, but he's really not. Pogačar does win the stage, and it looks like Jonas is trying to kind of stamp the approval there and get it, and he fails, which is kind of what I was going back to the beginning. I think Pogačar was the stronger guy in the race, and he just, like, mispaced the entire tour and front-loaded it by, like, kind of hot dogging and sprinting Vanderpool for stage wins the first week. That's gonna add up, and I think he never quite dug out of that hole. The favorite part of the whole series was this episode. Nala,
stop.
I can't. All right, come on, Nala, come on. So last one, creature. My favorite part of the whole series was this episode with, it was Jacobson and his finish. Then he was the last guy on the road.
Yeah. So I didn't know that there was a clock that you're racing against.
Yeah, so that's the time cut clock. So if you finish too far behind the leaders, you don't get to start the next day. So the last stage is a stage for the sprinters, which means that anybody who wants to be eligible for that has to finish the mountains. So Jacobson is probably doing a week and a half of hard racing just to get to this one day. And that might all be, and that not to mention his teammates. So you see, like, it was really touching. His teammates were waiting at the finish and cheering for him. But those guys want to be in the shower. They want to be eating. But they've been sweating for him all week and bringing him bottles. Like, it's team effort just to get that dude over the line in time. So they're all, like, out there, like, hollering at him to get it. And he made the time cut by, like, seconds that day. And, of course, he doesn't win the Champs-Élysées. But it was one of those, like, when, I was watching, like, is this show good? Are they doing a good job? And then it's like, oh, I'm getting goosebumps and cheering for this guy. So they succeeded. That's ultimately, like, they made me care.
So once you're out, you're out.
Yeah, if you DNF, if you're out of the time cut, you go home.
Okay, and if you're out, does that affect your team?
Well, just then, like, there's one less guy to do work or get a result. So, like, those guys, he's by far their best chance to win a stage remaining.
Okay.
So, like, if he goes home, like, they got nothing to do the next 2 days, which is weird.
Yeah.
they're like, okay, now who's our second best sprinter is gonna be the sprinter now. He's gonna get sixth. So there's a lot of pressure on him, and all of them, like, they really want him to be there, or their kind of chance at a stage result is gone.
Is he not destroyed by the time he gets to, like, his goal, whatever? He's
toast. Everybody's toast. And it's one of those, like, that's part of it. He has to recover from that enough to still, like, perform the next day. So there is a time trial in between. So the time cuts are always very generous for that. So, like, you get to lose 6-7 minutes in a 40K, which just, like, isn't that hard. You can basically, like, soft pedal, not that soft, but you can soft pedal a time trial and get sort of a rest day. They show Wout taking the car back from the press conference that day. I thought that's an interesting tidbit. So they got the team buses, which is, there's a shower on there, there's a little buffet going on, but then there's the team cars, especially, like, the tour stage, a mountaintop. The traffic on those things would be insane. So, like, there's the spectators who are driving up the mountain, and then you've got, like, 15 buses, and think about all the switchbacks and the crazy climbs, that sort of mess. So there's sort of two things. One, you're going to be on the bus, and then you get to sort of stretch out and relax. But what you really want, the top guys, they take the team car back. So now you're not as comfortable in the car, but the car zips through traffic, and now you're at the hotel half an hour sooner. That's one of those, like, it's a race within the race. So after the press conference, he has to be there an extra 20 minutes. But on the plus side, he gets to go home in a zippy little sport wagon. But first, that stage is framed as Jonas, like, his final challenge at yellow from Pogačar, and he meets, he doesn't lose time. And then he's like, I don't want to celebrate yet. One of the press asks him, like, does it feel like you've won the race? And he says, no, I don't want to, not until he wins the race, because there's a time trial the next day. And I was like, are they building up fake, suspense for this time trial? And I had to look it up. It's 40K. So, yeah, like, if that's real. If it was 10K, I'd be like, no, you're not. But 40K, like, he certainly can't mail it in. It's going to be hard to lose 2.5 minutes. So it shows, while those guys are racing, it shows Jonas take a couple risks in the turns. You see that? He's
I got nervous a couple times. I did. I flinched. Yeah. I flinched.
One of those, like, he's so you can tell the way he's riding that he is a little bit scared of Pogačar and not winning the thing. You don't take risks if you're confident. Like, he's ripping those turns, and it's hard to. Nobody handles a disc bike, a TT bike, very well. It's awkward. And you see Wout, even, like, he's watching on TV, he's like, ooh.
Yeah.
You scare Wout, you're doing all right. It shows Wout in the hot seat. You know what the hot seat is?
No.
So when you cross the line and you're leading the time trial, they put you in the hot seat, which is a chair. It looked a lot like Godot's gaming chair. I don't know if you noticed. But he's sitting probably a different chair. Could be. I wonder if Godot bought a hot seat. That'd be a power move. But so Wout's in the hot seat. And then you watch, so they get to see the riders' reaction of other guys either beating their time or not beating their time. Right.
That's so reality TV.
It is. Well, that's kind of what sports with the original reality TV. I think you nailed it.
Okay, so explain, because I got a little bit confused why he got emotional when he said he realized that somebody mentioned to him that he could have been giving it to him. Right.
So yeah, they didn't explain that very well. So Jonas starts last, and then it starts in reverse GC. So, like, the last overall guy goes first, all the way down to the end. So Jonas the whole time was hearing Pogačar's time splits, and he knows his only job is to finish within 2 minutes 20 seconds, whatever, of Pogačar's time.
Okay.
And I'm sure he knew in the radio with 2K to go, he did it, which means, like, he won the tour, whatever. What that also means is if Wout is in the hot seat, now they're telling him like, oh, if you on this current pace, you're going to win the stage ahead of Wow. So that's saying like you're 5 seconds up on Wow at the last K. So Jonas found out he's there's no way he's going to lose to Pogacar, and if he continues to press, he's just going to take the stage from his teammate who's been working for him almost every day. Some days he didn't work for him, but I guess that's how you know that he's not mad at Wow. Whatever cooked up team interdynamic drama that Netflix had, he wouldn't have given Wow the stage if he didn't want to. So he intentionally pedals easy or easy-ish, whatever, the last little bit to make sure, which is pretty cool, just a wild position to be in, and pretty cool he did it. It's one of those like, that's classy.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's also, it'd be funny because one of the rules is when you win the tour, you have to give all of your teammates a gift, because for sure all those guys have like a crazy bonus in their contract, $1 million to win the tour, just straight up cash.
Okay.
So you're supposed to, you give that out.
Yeah,
there's a watch store in Girona that like that guy has sold Rolexes to so many Grand Tour winners. I pointed out that place when we were in there. So for sure, Wout is also getting a Rolex. But remember, I heard when Cadel Evans won the tour, he didn't give his teammates a watch. He gave them each like the number for his travel agent and said like, hey, just trip for you and your family, whatever, on me.
Okay, and then we're on to the final stage.
Yep, all
the parade stuff.
What do you think of the parades? What is someone the whole where they're like doing the photo op part of the stage, like the first 100K where they're just like riding side by side and they're drinking champagne out of the.
If it lightens the mood. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I was indifferent. I don't care.
It's always a funny thing because like you're still in the race and there's still going to be a sprint, but like here's this neutralized. I think it's cool. Like part of what's fun about the tour is like there's just so much tradition. It's been going on so long that like there's stuff you don't question, and it's silly. And then they ride through the Louvre, which is sweet.
That was cool.
I wish they went inside. I wish they there's like race gel on the Mona Lisa.
No, can you imagine crashing the Peloton like in the
crash
Louvre?
into the statue?
I don't think so. That's not going to work.
It'd be funny though. There's like they're like mopping scuff marks from the rubber on the. Netflix has a little bit of a pickle here because they're trying to make a crescendo to the whole series, but the last stage is like kind of sort of dumb. So they're like building up the Jacobson Philipsen, not rivalry, but how they're both how important it is for them to win this stage. But it's like, the GC has decided, which is kind of one of the problems with, the Tour de France, like how do you get people to watch every day? And then with pro cycling in general, it's one of those like the whole season, the peak for most sports, here's the regular season, here's the playoffs, here's the finals, and they get like increasing television for each one. For pro cycling, like the whole sport peaks in July, and then World Championships is in like September, October for some reason. And how do they make you? And then there's like a Vuelta in there somewhere. Yeah. So it's just like there's nothing they do about it. It's seasonal. The Tour de France has been going on, but it's and the Tour is like a little microcycle of the same issue of like, okay, how do we? But the Champs Elysees, they make up for it with beautiful drone shots of Paris. I will say the drone shots of the countryside made Paris look like shit, which is saying a lot because Paris looks great. But all of it, they make up for it with pornography, basically, with drone shots. Well, I don't know what they did before drones back then.
Does anybody watch the World Championships like they do? I mean, who?
Hardcore bike fans do.
Yeah.
But Netflix won't make a series on it. It shows Philipsen being like pretty aggressive in the last K, which one of those like when he's got his lead out going and then another team attacks, and it's one of those. It's that same moment of like, oh, you better win, because he ditched his teammates. His teammates, like, he had their lead out, and then another lead out went by, and he, like, tacked on it, which is kind of a no-no. It's saying you don't trust your lead out, but they did sort of build up that, like, they switched his last lead out guy, so I think he didn't like that. He didn't like that move. Whatever it was, his instinct a little bit was to move over, which, like I said, he won the stage, so literally no one's ever going to bring that up again, but if he came third, they'd have been slapping him around the bus all night. But I think they can't call him disaster anymore. I don't care if he's allowed to forget his socks.
I think it's still call him disaster. He could still be a disaster. But now he's just proof that, disasters can sometimes
I think
work out.
You win the Champs-Elysees as a sprinter, and you kind of shut everybody up. Jacobson dropped his chain, so that was kind of a lot of build-up for that to happen. But that's also like, imagine being him. Like if we were pumped about watching. It's a bumpy thing, and you're sprinting, and it doesn't take much. It shows Groenewegen in there, but it doesn't talk about like their rivalry. It mentions Jacobson's crash, which like severe facial reconstruction caused by an aggressive move from Grunewagen, who got like a 9-month ban. There was talk of like suing him for assault because it seemed intentional. I mean, he got a 9-month ban, which someone thought it was, but it's one of those like awkward to be racing with that guy, and like you were in the hospital for a while, get your face sewed back on, and he like almost went to jail for it or something. I just can't imagine how weird that is. Fuck being a sprinter. And Phillipson crosses the line. He has like the cliche thing of holding the bike over your head, and you were like, throw it. You only wanted to spike it in the end zone.
I did. I wanted to
smash it.
I wanted a freaking celebration, you know?
I mean,
put some passion into it.
The celebration has to have a line at like a $12,000 carbon fiber thing. I get it.
But they can crash them all willy-nilly on the course and it's
well,
okay.
yeah, that's not intentional. I think there'd be a talking to if he did what you wanted. They showed a quick pan of, I had to pause it to see Nelson Palace's dad was wearing a shirt that said Proud Papa Palace. It was just pink. Like he had shirts made. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rigo had a line, I forget how he was sort of describing like, it's a party after if you win and again if you lose. I put it better in Draft Animals. It's champagne if you win and beer if you lose, but either way it's a party. After the race, there's always, no matter what the race is, everyone brings like, this is Tour de France, this is Tour of California, whatever, like everyone brings like one pair of jeans and one button-down shirt, and someone, somewhere during the stage, they found out the after party for Tour of California was at Peddler's Fork. Like when they first, like their grand opening was at the Tour of Cali after party. What's funny is they have this whole arc and they're celebrating, but these guys all have a race like next week. Either like, there's more races coming up. The season is like mid-season at this point, but there's also like, there's the post-tour crits, which is this bizarre, like, if you think anything's cooked in the Netflix series, like these are races where they're entirely staged, as in like, the guy who wins the yellow jersey is supposed to win a sprint. Like, so the last 3 laps. So everybody gets start money. It's nothing to do with anything. Everybody gets start just money to show up as a performance. But it's for like a small town who the race didn't go through and they want to see the Tour de France. So it's like they would let Chris Froome win a field sprint in a bike throw against Peter Sagan and everybody cheers. And it's like they know it's staged, but they don't. It's strange. It's a show.
It's a performance.
They put on a show.
It's a show, yeah.
Right. Okay, so it's not strange. It makes complete sense. But they're all getting that's like a nice little way to cash in.
Post-tour crits.
The post-tour crits.
Now on Broadway. You think I could star in that?
You could do post-tour
crit. If it's a musical?
If it's staged, it's a musical.
If it was a musical, I could be a background dancer.
A background dancer. Okay, you write that. You work on that?
All right, okay.
I'll go. So I like the ending. I like the show. Did you like it? What do you think?
Yeah, I felt it was disjointed a little bit, and there was a lot of things that needed further explaining or holes.
Yeah.
But I think I would watch a few stages.
Okay, so you're not turned off from the tour entirely.
No.
I don't know how like I keep hearing the F1 series, which is like race 1, race 2, race 3. There's a point thing, but like the tour has so many swords of the story that they had to sort of go back. I don't know how they could have done it better. They did a good job ultimately, like establishing a few characters, but to the F1 thing, like that documentary produced by the same crew was credited with like really putting F1 on the map in the U.S. As far as like those guys are famous here now, and no one really gave a shit about F1 in the States before. I don't think Wout is going to be like a household name or face. I think he could walk down Rodeo Drive without being recognized.
Yeah,
no problem. Whereas like Daniel Ricciardo, different story. So is this going to grow the sport a little bit? I'm sure a little bit. Like people watch it more than they would have, but I don't think it's going to like change cycling forever in America. At least not for season 1. I hope they keep going. I hope they do season 2. A couple things they didn't talk about. Like some of the comments told me that they didn't talk about the gear, and that is one of them. Cycling fans and the gear. I disagree. I'm over it. No one wants to. I don't need to sit and hear about how many cylinders the Ferrari has in the F1 thing, and they don't. The carbon fiber this and the Campagnolo versus. No, that's an inside cycling thing. You can watch that on GCN or my channel or somewhere else.
Sure.
I just don't think Netflix wants to do like here's
true.
This guy's bike. They all look the same to my mom. They didn't get into the soigneurs or mechanics at all, which is kind of a bummer. I think those folks deserve it. Like the spectacle and the crew and the staff behind it is like kind of, it's all insane what goes on. And maybe like the tech could be part of that. It's like the research. These guys, the wind tunnels, like all the preparation and the tire gluing, the mechanics who are up all night washing everything and shining everything, and then the soigneurs who are just like so good, and their whole. I would have watched like a day in the life episode. One of the 8 is sort of devoted to the behind the scenes of staff, the chefs. That whole mess. I wish they did more of that. No, the staff are like the first ones up and the last ones to go to bed, and the riders like are correctly pampered because they're going through the physical thing. But like they rotate. I think the soigneurs do like week on, week off.
Okay.
Because like a whole 3-week thing would be insane. But hopefully the next season they get into that. So they end the whole thing with the guy talking at camera, and he's saying like, if there's anything that I want to get across with this series, it's a team sport. And I like that. I wish they said at the beginning. I wish they built that up. Like, it's definitely a team sport, and I like that that's sort of been explained, because that is missing. I think that's a big problem with doping in the sport, is like the whole team wins, but one guy's on the podium, and that's kind of a problem too. Like, they should have the whole team on the podium. If it's team sport, then it shouldn't be Jonas Vingegaard wins. It should be Jumbo-Visma wins, and that's one of those. When the Tour de France first started, it was an individual sport. There weren't teams, and drafting wasn't really a thing on a 70-pound bike and fixed gears and whatever. Yeah. And like as the race evolved, like the podium didn't evolve.
That's interesting, because even I didn't know that.
No, they don't say like LeBron won the NBA championship. Yeah. They say the Lakers won, and I think that's I don't know how they just need to one year be like, all right, this is how we're doing it now. And I think like honestly now. And if that's the move, then they're saying the sponsor's name more often. There's more value there. I think there's a lot to that I don't know what they're waiting for. It's a team sport, and this is a team podcast. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Team.
Thank you.
You know what our team is doing tomorrow?
What are we doing?
We're going salsa dancing.
Oh, that's right. We're going salsa dancing
tomorrow. I'm gonna make him.
I'm gonna eat tacos and watch.
He's gonna. Yeah. Team sport.
Team sport. Thanks for watching. Keep tuned, keep subscribing for some more during the tour.